Hi everyone and welcome to our wreath making workshop. Hope you're all looking forward to following along with us with your own catkin kits that you've received. So we're going to start off splitting up the workshop into three parts. So the first part is going to be mossing, which I've got all my moss on the table here, and then we'll go on to greening up and then adding all our detail and sort of more delicate foliage in the end. It just makes it a lot easier to sort of break it up into three parts. You're not sort of bombarded with loads of stuff all over your table, and it just keeps everything a bit neater. So we're going to start off with mossing. So you will have all your moss, you've got your wire here, and then we've got pins which will be for later, and then scissors which you'll need just to cut the wire at the end. So to start off with, we're just going to attach our wire to our ring. So I tend to pop it through just around where one of the joins are. I just wrap it round a few times just to secure it onto my ring. There you go, and it should be nice and tight. And then with your moss, you want to start with quite big handfuls, be quite generous. And I tend to just get 2 handfuls and just clump it on like that. And then you literally just wrap your wire all the way around your handfuls, pull it quite tight, and it should start attaching like this on both sides. Now I tend to go around a couple of times with my moss, just making sure that it's all really even and secure on the frame. So hold it tightly and just wind it round and pull it tight. So you're just using the continuous reel of wire the whole way around your wreath. Sometimes there are sort of stems and sticks in there as well, so you just want to pull those out so you've got nice soft moss. And then you want to make sure that the join is quite continuous as well, so you're not left with sort of just bunches as you go. You want to have it nice and clean. It will get pretty messy, but the tighter you put it on, the more will stay on your ring. So just keep adding my handfuls, one on top and one on the bottom. You can see it's quite quick once you get going, so we're sort of halfway there already. So the reason that we use moss is that it can be soaked, and so when you put all of your stems in, it just keeps all the moisture in and makes your wreaths last a lot longer. And also by binding it on in this way, it makes it really secure and sort of like a netting. That means all of your stems will be nice and secure and stay in place on your wreath. Keep going round. You just want to make sure that you're keeping the same thickness all the way around as well. So there we go, there's one layer of all the moss done on the wreath, but we're not done just yet. We now need to go in and just finish up filling in all the gaps. So here I can see that's not much on there, so I need to add a bit more. And if you just feel all the way around your wreath, so like there, that needs a bit more, just so you've got a good thickness all the way around. And you want to have a good sort of handful, so like that sort of thickness all the way around. And we've got loads of moss left over as well, so just carry on doing it like you did before. So you're just adding another layer around the outside. Just making sure it's all nice and tight, and you're filling in those gaps. Keep finding other little gaps that I'm just adding more moss to, so that we've got a nice even base all the way around. And you want it so that you can't see any of the ring on this side or this side, so you want it completely even all the way around. And sort of generally say you just don't want to be able to feel the metal rings underneath, so that's sort of a good indicator that you've got enough moss on. If you can feel the metal underneath, you're going to need to add a bit more moss. I'm just filling in the last little bit now, so you can see there that this back bit needs a little bit more. Okay, there we go, so that is all ready. It's never going to be exactly perfect, you will have bits that fall off, but there you go, there's the finished wreath. And now what you need to do is we need to make the hook, so that we make the hook now and then it's ready for you to add on later. So what we do is I put my hand like this and then I wrap my wire around 3 times. 2, 3, and then I'll just give it a quick snip. And just keep hold of that end. So then you've got a gap like this, and all you do is just twist it like that, and then just get your end here, just thread it through a couple of times and just tuck it into your moss there so you don't poke yourself. And there you've got your ring with your hoop on, and now it's ready to be soaked. Okay, so now we have finished mossing our wreath, we are going to soak it. I've just got a bath of water here, but a shallow sink or a tub or something will be absolutely fine as well. The reason that we soak it is because this is a really traditional way of making reeds. This is what everyone did before Oasis and things, and we really like doing it this way, and it's better for the environment than Oasis as well. And just soaking it means that all of the stems get a really, really good drink once they're sort of up on the door, and then once a week or so, if you are able just to sort of redunk it in the bath and just give it sort of another good soak, it just helps all the stems stay fresh and happier for much longer. If your door is on a slightly sheltered area or isn't going to get exposed to the weather, we definitely recommend doing it. It just makes it all look nicer for longer. So if we just gonna dunk it in for a few seconds on one side, it's quite shallow, and then just do the other side. There we go, and it will drip quite a lot. We'll just leave it for a bit. If you are a bit worried about putting it straight on your door with your paintwork as well, they will drip for a few hours once made, so probably best just to leave it somewhere else, just to hang and drip for a little bit before you put it straight onto the door. And so then we're just going to place it onto the cello here, just to help protect the table a bit better. And now we're ready to start putting our foliage in. Okay, great. So now that we have mossed our wreath and soaked our wreath, it's time to start adding all of our greenery here. But first of all, I'm just going to attach some string to my loop here, just so that I don't lose it as I go. This just helps me find it at the end when I finished making my wreath. So just knot that on a little bit. There we go. And it just helps you also remember where your top is, so that you know that if you want something slightly more wild at the bottom, you know that that's your top, and it's just a good sort of indicator to help you when you make your wreath. So we'll talk through the stems first. So first of all, we have got sugar pine. These are really cute. They've got little pine cones attached onto it as well. And these are really good because you can break down each branch from the stem, and it just gives a lot of texture. And it's sort of slightly more your traditional wreath. And then we've also got spruce, that's literally like a branch off a Christmas tree. Again, this is really good because you can cut off all the different branches onto your wreath. And then we've also got this baby blue eucalyptus, which is really pretty and delicate, and it smells really lovely as well. And we've also got grevillea, which is another lovely foliage. It's got very silvery back to it, so it's nice and shimmery once it's in your wreath. And again, we can cut it down into sections, and you can have it sort of coming out a bit wild as well. So I always like to start with my spruce. Let's move these out of the way. And what we want to do is we want to pin in every single bit of foliage that goes into our reeds. And for the big chunky stems like this, you'll need your longer pins. So we've got the long pins and the shorter pins. These ones are for big bits of chunky foliage with thick stems, and then we'll go on to the smaller pins when we start adding in sort of berries and rose hips. And you want to make sure that you're cutting all of your stems at a sharp angle, so that you've got lots of surface area on your stems for them then to drink lots of water once they're in the wreath. You then sort of need to strip off a few of the little end pieces, so that you can get them in more easily. And we like to put everything in at a 45-degree angle as you go around, because then it'll just give you a nice sort of flowing circle with all your foliage, and just looks a lot nicer than if you sort of stuck everything out sort of at a 90-degree angle. So you want to sort of put bits on the top here, and you also want to make sure you fill in the middle as well, because once the wreath is hanging upwards, once it's up on your door, you'll be able to see this bit on the inside here, so it's important to fill in that as well. And then also your sides, you need to fill those in as we go. So I just start with my first piece. So it just slots all the way in there, push it down as far as you can, and then with your pin, just straight through the stem and in as deep as you can. And that now is not going to go anywhere. And also as the moss dries out and the water sort of leaves the moss, it will be a bit more roomy in here. So just having the pin, just make sure that it's definitely secured right down into the base of your ring. And so I like to prep all of my stems first. I just find it a bit easier than sort of stop starting. So if I just get a few of these ready to go. And you don't have to use the whole branch either first time. You can always sort of save a few bits for later, and you might sort of find a few gaps and think, oh, that could do with an extra few stems there. And then with branches like these here, again, you can cut them in half. You just remember to keep cutting all of your stems nice and sharp into a point, so that they've got lots of surface area to drink from. You've probably got enough to start with now. So I'm just going to start going around and filling in all of my pieces. So remembering to have all the sides covered, so you've just got the back with no stems in. It just gives it a nice shape and sort of fills in all the holes. So we also like to start with spruce as well, because it is the big sort of chunkier foliage, and it's just a good base to start your wreath with. And then we go in later and fill in with all the details and bits like that. So it's making sure they're really deep into your moss, and you've pinned them so they're really, really secure. And so you see how I'm doing them all slightly sort of in the same direction as the wreath is going, just so it gives a nice curve and a nice sort of smoother circle as well. So if some stems you think are a bit too chunky as well, just sort of snip them down again and sort of have a play around with where everything's going and sort of your positioning. So you want to have a nice gap between all your different foliages. You don't want to sort of just chunk everything all into one area. It's nice to sort of dot everything about, and then we'll go in with the next foliage and sort of fill in those gaps slowly. Not forgetting to fill the middle bits as well. Now I'm just going to go in and fill some of the gaps with some more smaller pieces. And just remember to keep pinning every single piece of foliage that goes in. Sometimes if some of them are a little bit hard to get in or a bit delicate, you can sort of just pop your scissors in to make a little hole and then pop the stem in to that gap. Might just add one more piece. So there we can see it's all starting to take shape now. So I'm just going to leave it here and I'm going to start adding in some of my sugar pine. But I've got loads left over, so if I do feel like I've got a few gaps at the end, I can add those in later. So I really like the pine cones and things on the stems here, so I'm going to make sure that I put this somewhere really nice in the middle of my wreath so that you can see it from the front. I think I might pop that. Pop him in there. There we go, and pin it in. So I'm just sort of filling them in the gaps of where my spruce is. And again, I'm just pulling off the ends so that we've got a nice clean stem to put into our moss. I quite like sugar pine because you can have it sort of coming out a little bit further. It's just got a really nice shape and it's not too heavy, it's quite delicate compared to the spruce. So even though we made our reeds on a 14-inch base, they're actually going to end up a lot bigger than that, because once you've got all the moss and all of the foliage in as well, it's going to come out quite far. So even though you start on a small base, you can sort of spread out and end up with quite a big finished wreath. So I might actually choose a smaller pin for some of these now, for slightly thinner stems. Those are pine cones on this one. And just making sure everything's really well pinned in. So you can see now it's starting to look a little bit more sort of like a Catherine wheel shape. Now we're adding more around in our circle. And it just helps give it a much sort of neater shape and having a bit of a flow. So I'm just going to add a couple more and then move on to my baby blue. Just remembering to fill in the bottom as well. Okay. So now with the baby blue, you can cut it down into sort of a couple of sections, or you can leave it quite long if you wanted to have more of a sort of wild arrangement. I'm just going to cut some in half to begin with and just going in and filling my gaps. And then with these, you just want to sort of peel off the bottom few leaves. So we've got a nice clean stem going into our wreath. And again, just making sure we're pinning everything as we go. So these you might want to use the smaller pins for again, just where they're slightly more delicate stems. And these again look really pretty, sort of slightly more wild out the side of your reeds. I've got some fun stems like that as well, which would be quite good to fill a lot of space. So I pop that right in the middle there. And still remembering to fill out my edges all around as I go. So I might save a couple of my stems as well for the end, just so I can add any gaps that I see. Because you want to have sort of quite an even distribution of all your foliage around the wreath. You don't want to have sort of pockets where there's more than others. It just sort of helps it flow a bit better. And there we go. Okay, so next we're going to move on to the grevillea. So if I just show you what we've done so far. So remembering this is my top here. So we've just started adding all the spruce and pine around the edges and on the inside here and around the sides. So it's quite good every now and then just to pick it up and hold it as well, so you can see where bits are missing. So I know that I'm probably missing a little bit there. I might just add in some more of my spruce. So now grevillea, again, you can split this down into a few pieces on your stem. And it's just really pretty there. You can see sort of this, have the silvery foliage up, or you can twist it and have the green. So I'm going to do a bit of both. And just make sure to keep pinning everything in. So we like to use at least sort of 3, 4, 5 different types of foliages in all of our wreaths, just like we do with our bouquets, just because it adds a lot of texture and colour into them, and it's just something a bit more exciting as well. Just keep pinning it all in. And you want to make sure when you're chopping your stems down that bits like these you're just getting rid of as well, so you don't have sort of a stem sticking out. Just makes it all look a bit neater. Going around, filling in. I'm just making sure that I'm still keeping my overall circle and everything's sort of evenly placed coming out the sides. Okay, so I think I've got some spares left over, but I'll probably add those in at the end. But I think I'm done with what I've got now. So this is fully greened up wreath, and we're ready now to add some berries and some more sort of delicate flower stems to it. Okay, so now we are on to our third part of the wreath making, which is adding in all of our really pretty berries, delicate stems and sort of more special foliage. So if I just talk you through all of the stems we've got first. So we've got 3 different types of rose hips. We've got some of these, which are really pretty shapes and really lovely, sort of more orangey colour. And we've got these rose hips, which are really good in sort of big clusters that we can sort of add in quite close to the centre of our wreaths. And we've got this variety too, which again, lots of different stems that we can break off and pop in. Then we have got some red poplars berries, which are really pretty and delicate, and again we can split them off and just sort of spread it through the whole wreath. Then we have got some skimmia. It's quite common shrubs that you find in a lot of gardens. They're really pretty, they've got a lovely red colour. Just be careful sort of washing your hands with this, it can be a little bit of an irritant on your skin. And then we've got, this is one of my favourites, we've got red mimosa here as well, and that's really lovely just to split up along the wreaths. And then we've got some ilex berries. We've got some ivy as well with the berries on, which is really pretty, and some more trailing stems as well, which are quite nice to sort of thread through the wreath. Then we have got some scabious seed heads, some hibiscus flowers, and some leucadendron as well. So I'm going to start off first, I think, with the more foliagey things, and then I'll start adding in the berries. So I'm probably going to start off with my mimosa. And again, just like we did with the foliage, just adding it in to our gaps and making sure we pin everything in as well. Again, you might just need to pull off a few of the bottom leaves and make sure it's in there as deep as it will go. I'm just making sure that I'm going to have a nice even distribution of all of the colour as well. So where obviously the stems are a lot redder at the top, just making sure that we've got those spread out along the wreath so that we don't end up with big sort of mass red clusters. So I don't have to use all of it either, I might save some for the end to add in, and as I go along I might sort of move bits about too. So it's really nice just sort of out the sides there, so it's really delicate and just gives a lovely shape to the outside of the wreath. So you can see now that the wreath is starting to fill up quite quickly. So once you get going and adding more and more foliage in, just gives a really full, luscious wreath. I might just add one more piece for now. Just pop that in there. I think just one more up here, so we've got an even distribution. So you can see now how, once we start adding another colour through, how important it is just to make sure it's all evenly distributed, because it starts to stand out a lot now that we've added another colour. So next I'm going to add my poplar berries. And these are really lovely, they just give a lot of movement and texture into the wreath. And you can also be a little bit wild with these as well, just where they've got sort of stems like that. It's really nice just to sort of pop it sort of floating out along the top. And when you're making it, if you just sort of think about where the top is and where your bottom is as well, you might sort of want slightly more sort of floating down the bottom, make it a little bit more sort of wild or asymmetric. And just sort of think about how it's going to be viewed as well. So sort of making sure that the bottom you're filling in still and the sides. I'm still pinning in everything. With some of the stems we can cut down a lot shorter as well and just really sort of tuck them right in to the middle of your wreath, because it's just a really lovely colour and detail to add. You want your eye to be drawn all around the whole wreath, so having little pops of detail right in the centre really draws the eye in. There we go. Now lift it up and have a little look at it. So there you go. So it looks so much different already now just with adding the other second foliage. So I'm going to move on to some of the berries now, I think, and then we can always add more at the end. Okay, so I'm probably going to go in now with some of my rose hips. So these we can cut quite short and just pop them in really close to the centre of the wreath, just to really draw the eye in. And really make sure that where these are slightly shorter stems that we're properly pinning in every piece so that they don't drop out. again, just having a really nice even distribution of all of the berries. You just want to check some of these as well. They've got little stems like that. You just want to chop them off so we've got no sort of twiggy bits sticking out. Just really getting them in deep and securing them well. I might just start adding some around the edges as well now, so sort of peeping out over the top, which looks quite sweet. Okay, I might move on to my next variety. Just going to add a little bit of orange into the mix. And again, just really nice and sort of close to the middle of your wreath, just to draw the eye in. Some of these now I'm going to start bringing up a little bit higher as well, just so we don't end up with sort of completely flat wreath. It's nice to have a few levels in there. And then it just means that the berries don't get hidden in amongst all the foliage as well. Some of these in. So I might keep these a little bit longer and just have them sort of pointing out a little bit more wild, just sort of as they would a bit more naturally. This is a really nice stem here, so I might just have this maybe coming out the bottom a little bit. It's slightly wilder. There we go. And I might save the last bit till the end. I'm just going to add in my leucadendron now. So again, you want to just strip the stems, and these are good for filling up quite little gaps as well. And with these you can also group them together, so if you wanted to sort of pop a few heads in a cluster, because as you can see on the stem they sort of grow naturally in a cluster anyway, so it's quite nice to sort of emulate that. And pin it. I've run out of pins. Okay, so I'll just show you how it's looking now. We've started adding berries and bits in. So it's just really popping now. It really looks like a proper sort of red traditional Christmas wreath. So just going to keep going and adding more berries in. It will drip a little bit where we've soaked it as well, but that's fine. So now I'm going to start popping through some ilex berries. So these you sort of snip again, just pull off the little bottom berries. And these are really nice just to put through, sort of poking out, and just really helps sort of define the sort of Catherine Wheel effect that we've got going on. I'm still pinning everything. Because pinning really does work once it all sort of dries out a little bit. It really helps keep all the stems in place. And just sort of feeding it through the whole circle. And you can sort of chop them so they're a bit like that as well. So you've got a little bit more length in your stem to then pop in to the moss. And again, just like that one, you can pop it in here. And also pops them in a little bit closer to the centre as well, so the colour is all the way through. I might just do a little bit of a bigger cluster, because there's a lot of green there, so I might just pop this through just to get it all to pop a bit more. And there's a little gap here at my top, so let's pop all that in. There's a bit of a hole there, so I might just add a little bit more pop this as well, just to fill that in. Okay, so I'll just leave that other stem there for now and just pop some skimmier in. So this again is really good for filling gaps that we have. So there's like quite a big gap in there. So if I just pop my skimmier in, and that just fills it really nicely. And again, just popping it through there just to break up the red a bit. Again, you can use the leaves as well, just to fill in some gaps. And still remembering to do sort of your edges and sides as well. So I can see on here I've got quite a lot of gaps as well, so Just fill those in. It's good to also sort of spin your wreath around a bit so you get a few different angles that you didn't see before, and you can see holes that you might not have seen from the other way. I'm just going to fill in some of the gaps here. Okay, and then find my top again. So just sort of looking like this now. We've got a few little bits left to add and some more detail, and then just checking that all the sides and bits are nice and covered. I might just go back through now with some mimosa. Okay, and then I might pop some of my hibiscus in now. So I might keep this quite long. So just chop off the little top bit there. I might just sort of thread it through. Yeah. And again, just cutting it at a really sharp angle. Pop it through bottom there. Okay, and my scabious heads. Pop those somewhere really prominent. And pop the other one in there. And I might add some more of these rose tips as well. Maybe we've got quite a few at the bottom here, so I might pop some up here at the top. So you don't have to use everything that we've got here. You can always sort of save some bits. You don't need to put absolutely everything in if you think you're at a stage where you've sort of finished now and it's looking really good and you're happy with it. That's absolutely fine. So I'm just adding some more bits around the edges here that are just going to sort of float around the sides and just sort of give a nice shape to the outside. Okay, I'm nearly done now. I'm just going to add in some of my ivy. So with this, what we can do is we can either sort of have it out quite far and so it's sort of a bit more wild, or we can sort of thread it through our reeds as well, so it's sort of growing through. So I think I'm going to do a little mix of both. I think I'll start off with a bit of a wild bit down here, just following where the hibiscus and some other rose hips are. And then I might just pop some through my foliage as well. You can sort of wrap it around your stems and bits. And then with the berries, I might just sort of have some of these just around the sides. They're really pretty. I'm just going to go through and add some of my last little bits and bobs here that we've got left over. And just sort of remembering that this is my top here, so my bow is going to go here, so I don't really want to sort of put anything too chunky there that will just get hidden. And a few last bits of ivy. I think we're nearly there. There we go, so I've got some bits left over and if I want to add those in at the end, I can do. And the best way to do is just keep holding it up and looking at it and checking if you need to add anything else, but I think I'm quite happy with that. So this is my final wreath, and now all it needs is the bow. Okay, so now we've got the final touch, which is your ribbon. So we would have had a little bit of wire attached to the back here. There's sort of little pins, and then just find your top and we just pop it in there. Just make sure, might wobble about a little bit, just make sure it's in there nice and tight. And now it's ready to hang on the door. So I hope you've really enjoyed making your wreaths along with me, and we love seeing all of your pictures, so please make sure you tag us and send us photos of your wreaths, and thank you so much for watching. Merry Christmas!